welcome back, everybody, to our next episode of Crime and Plastic.
I missed you all, especially you, Rosie.
Aw,
That's
Very
crazy.
sweet.
Like I'm also in the room. Hey guys.
I mean, I said you all.
And I've been gone for a while because I had COVID. So like
Yeah,
Yes.
that's crazy. That
you were down for like 12 hours. Must have been rough.
It was like 5 days. I was down bad there for a
Sure,
while.
sure. Can we go on with
I was
the
in the
podcast?
trenches.
Yes, I was too. I didn't know it.
COVID's real, guys.
Okay, he wants to talk about his segment.
I have a new segment I'd like to introduce to the podcast. It's called, what's it called? Weekly Developing Stories in Crime and Plastic.
Yeah.
And every week I'll go over the past week's headlines
Okay.
that involve crime and plastic surgery. And you might think, how many of those stories could there possibly be? Well, every freaking week there's more and more. In fact,
Well, we'll see.
this past week was a very interesting week because plastic surgeon Jeffrey Kim was found not guilty of attempted homicide of a patient who died after a breast augmentation, but he was found guilty of attempted manslaughter. So he is going to jail.
Do you want to elaborate?
Yes.
Who the fuck is this guy?
So we'll do a future episode probably of these developing stories.
Of course,
So,
we
but
will.
This is just a 2-minute summary.
Just a summary.
Can you do that?
Give us
Sure,
Give
sure.
us a spark note.
So the Sparks notes is that
The spark notes.
Sausage.
the short version of the story is that I think she was 18 years old. She was having a breast augmentation in Colorado, and something went sideways during surgery. And instead of calling 911 right away, the surgeon went and saw their patients and kind of was trying to cover his ass a little bit and did not do the appropriate thing. And she ended up with severe anoxia, no blood, no oxygen to the brain, and she was in a coma, and she eventually passed away. It was really tragic.
Really sad.
But when they went back and looked at the records and the testimony of the staff members, I guess what he did was pretty egregious, I would say, right?
That is pretty egregious.
And that's what the jury found. Now, the state wanted to convict him of homicide, of trying to murder her,
Of
essentially.
murder.
Of murder.
They're both homicides.
They're both homicides?
I'll give you the legal
Yeah.
differentiation.
Thank you.
As a legal expert,
Okay,
here.
so what's the difference between manslaughter and
murder,
homicide? The same thing?
they're both homicides.
They're both homicides.
Homicide is just death.
Got it.
So murder is like an intentional killing.
Yeah.
And manslaughter is an intentional killing, but with a something that mitigates it, like
Got it.
extreme emotional disturbance, or like I guess with this doctor, he wasn't thinking straight because he was in the middle of surgery. I don't know. I think they did have a good case for murder, but I guess it was mitigated by something.
Yeah, the jury, I guess, acquitted him on the murder and instead,
Yeah.
found him guilty on the manslaughter,
Yes.
which is it's attempted reckless homicide, class 5 felony in Colorado, which is punishable between 1 and 3 years in prison. And
But I thought you said she died.
she did die.
So why is it attempted?
Because I guess she didn't die immediately.
Yeah, she died later.
She died later, maybe.
So he was charged before she died.
No, I think after she died 14 months later in October 2020. And the augmentation happened in August 2019 when she was 18. We will go into the details of this case, I'm sure, at a future date once we have the sentencing and so forth.
Mhm.
But I just want to tell you that that's what happened this week. Now, another legal case was actually here in Miami where a post-plastic surgery center operator was arrested for operating without a license. Apparently, she had like a care house, where these things kind of pop up in Miami here and there, and they had like 18 patients in one house, and obviously it was kind of running like an assisted living facility, basically, without a license. So she got arrested for that.
She got arrested?
Arrested, yeah. Mhm.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it sounds.
Yeah, she was
illegal.
arrested and charged in the whole 9 yards. And then the last thing in the news this week is there's been a few cases of death from fungal infections in Mexico. It says Texas woman dies after contracting fungal meningitis linked to cosmetic surgery in Mexico. There's an outbreak, apparently. That's the second Texas mom killed by fungal brain infection after getting a BBL in Mexico.
It's like The Last of Us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there apparently they were doing these operations in a clinic where they were using, I guess instead of general anesthesia, they were giving spinal anesthesia, and something in the anesthetic, it was a contaminated batch, and there was like 20 or 30 people that got contaminated with this batch of fungus that was in the medicine into
Wait,
their
so
spines.
it's all the same. It's all the same center, same surgeon.
All the same centers. I guess maybe it was maybe it might be the anesthesia group that was going from place to place.
Something in the supply.
And there's something in the supply, and it got into their brains, and they're trying to track down every single person, but there's 2 deaths so far, and I think there's like 20 something cases of it.
It's giving The Last of Us.
It is giving The Last of Us. So that's the news in crime and plastic.
Well, I'm so happy to be living in this day and age.
That's the crime and plastic update.
Okay, now we go into this week's episode.
Yes. So
Who's telling the story this week?
Roro.
I am telling
Excellent.
a story.
No offense, but I love when she tells the stories. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll be offended though.
I love when you tell the stories.
Thank you. I love when you tell the stories.
I'm just gonna put my phone down.
I love that you don't tell stories. That you had to create an entire segment.
I
to
was
feel relevant.
I was. I did. I had half a mind to act out some of the drama that, as you describe it, like a radio
theater. We were
like
talking
radio
about that.
Whatever radio novel. What do they call those? In like the 40s and 30s.
I don't know.
Radio shows,
radio theater,
radio theater, something like that.
He wants to do something like where like one of us is the victim and one of us is the murderer, like kind of
like radio, radio in the 1920s, you know.
Like, how the fuck do they do that on radio?
Like,
okay, so they had like sound effects. They had actors be like, you know, you must pay the rent. I can't pay the rent. You must pay the rent.
Didn't they do
I'll
that?
pay the rent. You know, that kind of thing.
Like War of the Worlds?
Like War of the Worlds. It was Orson Welles, right? When he gave such a good radio performance, people actually like panicked and thought the world was ending and aliens had invaded.
Yes.
That's the kind of drama I want to bring to this podcast.
I think that...
Let us know what you think, guys, about that idea.
I'm going to vote no.
Maybe you should put a poll on TikTok. And see what people say.
All right, let's jump right into it, Rosie.
Let's make a poll of this room.
What crime and plastic are we going to be talking about this week?
Is a very interesting, unexpected love triangle case that turned into murder.
A love triangle?
Yes.
Okay.
So on July 11th, 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. That's not that long ago.
No.
Okay.
I went further in the future instead of starting.
She started like
you didn't start in 1894 like the last one? Okay.
I didn't go back. I didn't do their ancestry.com this time.
Okay.
So July 11, 2012, there's a 911 call in Lubbock, Texas.
911, what's the emergency?
Somebody has broken a window in the back, and the doctor did not show up for work today.
Ma'am, what's going on?
The bullet that was laying on the ground. I need somebody to hurry.
Yes, ma'am.
That lady sounded pretty scared. Who was that woman on the 911 call?
So it's unclear exactly who it was. It was either a landscaper, housekeeper, or someone that worked with him. And him is Dr. Joseph Soliere.
Dr. Joseph Soliere.
Yes. He's a pathologist in Lubbock, Texas, chief pathologist of Covenant Medical, I guess the hospital there.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was found dead in his house, shot and stabbed in his garage.
Damn.
Can I interrupt, or is this not time to interrupt?
Sure.
It's really crazy that a pathologist would be involved in such a thing, because pathologists are usually like the most boring people in the hospital. They literally only deal with dead patients.
Okay.
Or like pieces of patients.
Right.
Like they're like usually like the least gregarious, least social people. No offense, guys, but really, it's true.
But maybe they got to get it all out with their social lives.
Well, not in my experience. But okay. Just continue. A little shocked that it was a pathologist.
A little, even more shocking. So I'll come to that. What's even more shocking. So just a little background on who this guy is. So he's a pathologist in Covenant Medical, whatever, chief pathologist, head of pathology. And he is late 40s. Totally, by all reports, a nice, kind of, nice guy, nothing.
Boring, very bookish usually.
When the police came, they figured it was a burglary gone wrong.
Right.
But nothing was burgled. Nothing was missing. So somebody came to kill him.
Shot and stabbed, you said?
Shot and stabbed.
See, the stabbing, that's,
That's
because you already
personal.
shot him. Why stab him?
So
Well, you don't know which came first. We're listening to the same story.
You know who could figure out which came first? Ironically, a good pathologist.
yes. So he was like kind of like the dorky guy in high school. He didn't date a lot, married his high school sweetheart for 27 years.
That sounds like a pathologist.
Then-
exactly.
His wife fell in love with someone else and left him after 27 years. They had
Wait
3
a minute.
boys.
I'm married 27 years.
You know, I don't know. Nobody's safe.
Nobody's safe.
No, but listen. So this is where it gets kind of crazy and even more shocking.
Mm-hmm.
2 years almost to the day, on July 12th, 2010, his wife was murdered by her new husband that she left him for.
2 years previous.
Whoa.
2 years previous, she was shot by this new husband that she left her old husband for, that she left the Dr. Soliere for, shot by this new husband, and then that husband shot himself. So these poor children have 2 parents who were shot and murdered. 2 parents that were murdered.
And a stepdad.
And a stepdad, but
3
yeah.
parents that were murdered.
3 parents that were murdered.
That's terrible.
Well, I'm sure they weren't too fond of the stepdad.
I'm
Well,
sure.
not afterwards, but I mean,
Not at all.
Yeah, I don't think ever. 27 years, their mom left their dad. So at first, the kids are like, is this related? Like, what are the chances that 2 of our parents were murdered? So,
At least their grieving month was like consolidated.
yeah, July was not a good month for them.
I'm trying to keep it straight.
Yes.
The pathologist, the boring pathologist guy, was
Yeah.
married to a lady for 27 years.
Yes.
She leaves him for another doctor,
Yes. No, I don't know who she left him for.
just some other guy.
She left him for another guy.
Rando guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Rando guy kills her and himself.
Yep.
2 years later,
Almost to the day.
almost to the day, pathologist doctor is murdered.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so now the police are starting to investigate what happened. Why is someone, like you said, killing a pathologist? It was for no burglary. What was the motive? All of that. So they interview his girlfriend,
Okay.
Rochelle Shatina. So,
That sounds like my name if you fucked it up with shit.
so,
Shatina Rizzo, all the letters are there
so
except for the Z's.
Dr. Soliere, now that he was newly single after his wife left him, he was dating for the first time in his
27
40s.
years.
He
Yeah.
didn't even date in high school. He married the first girl he ever dated.
Right.
So first he thought, he didn't think that he would do well with the ladies. But, turns out he's a reasonably good-looking, well-to-do doctor.
Right.
So he was getting a lot of dates. And he decided a good way to meet women was to start taking dancing lessons.
Okay.
So he took dancing lessons, and he met Rochelle Shatina.
Shatina. That's an unfortunate last name.
Shatina.
Shantina.
That's unfortunate as fuck.
And they hit it off. She was a former cheerleader, dancer, blonde, beautiful.
What was she doing taking
already
dancing
hate her.
lessons? She was also trying to meet people?
Yeah, I think she was a dancer also. She was like an old, previous dancer, so she probably wanted to meet people too.
Right.
And they hit it off.
So she was like already a good dancer, so she goes to the dance class and can kind of
Yeah.
show off. I got it.
So
I'm onto that.
She reeled in Dr. Soliere,
Good for her.
and they had a great relationship. His kids liked her. They had just gone away to France for her 50th birthday right before he was murdered.
Mm.
So the police interview her to find out if they can figure out, because usually it's somebody close to the person who murders, so she was a person of interest. And they interview her, and she says, he was the love of my life, and da-da-da. And they ask her, does she have any ideas who could have done this? Like any... So she mentions her ex-boyfriend, Dr. Thomas Michael Dixon.
Why is it Michael always got to come up with these crazy plastic surgeons? Thomas and Michael.
Yeah. Plastic surgeon from Amarillo,
You forgot the
Texas.
murder up in Tampa, Tom?
Oh, right.
Yeah. So she said that they had dated previously, and he still couldn't let her go. Like, he was still calling her, wanted to meet with her, even though she told him she was with somebody new and she was committed. Da da da. So she says you should talk to him.
He's a plastic surgeon, I assume.
He is a plastic surgeon in Amarillo, Texas, and a fairly well-known one. He had billboards, was on the media, all of that. So they drive up to Amarillo, Texas to interview him.
Uh-huh.
And so him and Shatina, Rochelle.
Her name is Shatina from now on.
Yeah.
Shit,
But
Tina.
can I just say, like, Rochelle's not, like, right now is not a great name either because of, like, the whole Sandoval shit. Like,
Yes.
Raquel, Rachel, Rochelle, all
Yeah.
bad names.
Santina.
Shatina.
That's
Unfortunate
true.
names.
So the police drive up to Amarillo, Texas
Yes.
to investigate Thomas Michael Dixon,
Thomas Michael Dixon.
Who was-
To interview him.
to interview him because he was still
So I'll
somehow
tell- yes.
clinging on to this Rochelle.
Right. So I'll give you the background of Dr. Dixon and Shatina. So they met in 2008. Thomas Michael Dixon was married.
Can we put the Shatina name in the title for the podcast somewhere?
So in 2008, Shatina went to his med spa for Botox.
Mhm.
He gave her Botox. 2 years later, they have an affair.
Was he married?
He was married.
That's what an affair means.
No, but you didn't tell me he was married.
I
You
did.
She literally said
I
that.
zoned out for a second.
Yes.
Okay, Thomas Michael Dixon is married.
Is married, has 3 children.
3 children.
Like up and coming plastic surgery practice. Like
Right.
his life is going very well.
Until Rochelle steps in.
Till
Listen, you need to stop repeating everything she says.
Well, because I need to repeat it so I hear it, so I understand, so it
I know, but
processes.
it's annoying for people to listen to.
You're so mean.
I can't find nicer ways to tell you things. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to the viewers or listeners, whatever.
Okay, Dr. Dixon is married. He has a plastic surgery practice that's booming, like up and coming in Amarillo, Texas. 2008, Shatina comes to him for Botox. She's his patient. They become friendly on Facebook.
It's always Facebook.
Yeah.
That was in 2008 Tinder.
Yeah, that was just when Facebook came out, just about. Yeah.
So 2010, they start to have an affair,
Mm,
and his wife finds out. He gets divorced.
mm.
He has to pay his wife's child support, money, all of that. Breaks up with his wife, but he's willing to give it all up because he really loves Shatina.
Mm.
He does really love her, but for some reason, he doesn't want to take things to the next level with her either because she wants to get married.
Right.
And on her birthday, she's expecting to get an engagement ring, and instead he gives her a Tea of the Month club as her birthday present.
Who doesn't love a Tea of the Month club?
That's crazy.
So she gets really upset. They break up. It
Yes,
doesn't-
wouldn't you? If you thought you were going to be proposed to?
Yes.
But you also like destroyed his whole family. Why did you think he was gonna put a ring on it?
You weren't expecting Tea of the Month, though.
Yeah.
At least a bracelet or something.
Yeah, I think that was, that was not well received. So
Duly noted.
So they break up, and then she starts a dancing class. She meets this really nice pathologist who's super sweet and devoted, and takes her to France for her birthday.
When's her birthday? Do you know?
And dancing classes.
I think it was probably May or June because it was right before the murder.
Oh,
They had just gotten back. But he still keeps trying to pursue her, and she's like, no, I'm da-da-da. And she talks about her new boyfriend on Facebook, and he gets triggered about it. So now we're fast forwarding to when the police are coming to his, to interview him.
Mhm.
And he's there with his new girlfriend. Who's
the new Tea of the Month.
the new girlfriend, who's, I think he was around 48 at the time. She's 24.
Whew.
A med school student
Oh, no.
at the school that he's like a adjunct professor at.
Why did guys do that?
So he
So gross.
he gave a lecture to her. He gave a lecture at her school, and his new girlfriend's name is Ashley Wolbert.
Oh.
And he gave a lecture at her school, and then invited her to come watch surgery, and then they start dating.
Sleazy.
Yeah. So they were at the house together. The police come, they interview him, and he says, I don't know anything about it. I don't even know why you're here. He does say that he still loves Shatina. He said, she did break my heart, and, I'd love to get her back.
that's crazy. Is Ashley in the room when he says that?
No, they were interviewed separately.
I
I feel like he said,
I mean,
what?
no shade, but I don't think she's making the best judgments. Ashley
Yeah.
hooking up with.
Well, Ashley says they were dating, but it wasn't exclusive. Anyway, so
Okay.
but they're interviewed separately. They come with a man and woman police officer. The man interviews him, and the woman interviews Ashley. And then Ashley mentions that they had gone out the night before with Dave, but Dr. Dixon doesn't mention Dave, but Ashley does. So then on their way out, the police are like, "Who's Dave? You didn't say, you know." And he's like, "Oh, he's my friend. We went out last night. He came over for cigars. So, you know, nothing."
Definitely didn't murder my love rival. Not him.
A few days later, the police get a phone call from this guy, Paul Reynolds, who says, "This guy that I'm staying by, Dave Shepard, just told me that somebody hired him to kill somebody in Lubbock, Texas, and I thought he was lying, but I googled the news and somebody was murdered in Lubbock, Texas, and I think it was him because he said somebody hired him because he was dating his girlfriend. He basically confessed the whole story to Paul Reynolds, and Paul Reynolds calls the crime hotline and says, you know, what the fuck?
You know what?
Yeah.
You need to hire a mute to do your fucking bidding.
Did
Because
I
I feel
think-
like that's always the case. Like, they tell someone, like, even in Adnan
Wasn't that like
Syed-
in Game of Thrones? Wasn't there a mute or something in one of the seasons where like
There was. I
there
think.
was, right? That was like part of the thing that like
I don't know, the
he can't
Hound?
tell anybody. No. Like they specifically
Muted him.
no, it's something along
Well, they would
those lines.
cut off people's tongues.
Tongues.
for
Yes,
a
that's it.
reason.
Yeah, they cut off the tongue.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
good reason. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like,
yeah, they do always tell somebody.
they
and then-
always tell someone because it's a big thing to you know weigh on your fucking chest.
Yes.
So
That's
Or it's
why
like- or
my
it's like-
father used to say a secret is only a secret if one of them's in the grave. you
That's
know?
what the Pretty Little Liars theme song said too.
Yeah.
Two
Could be.
can keep a secret if one
So
of them is dead.
Yes. That's good. Well done.
Thank you.
David apparently tried to commit suicide twice over these few days, and
Oh.
He failed twice.
he failed twice. And his nice friend Dr. Dixon stitched up his wrist one of the times of his failed suicide attempts.
What a good friend.
So and kindly told him to leave town.
Did he pay for his ticket at least?
Well, he didn't leave town.
Oh.
So the police call Dave, and Dave confesses everything. He says,
I mean, he's trying to kill himself. He might as well just
he
come clean.
he said, you know, my
Terrible.
friend Dr. Dixon, because Dr. Dixon and him met because now after he was divorced, when he became single and whatever, he was like his confidant. When he
His
would
wingman
yeah, basically.
on the town.
Yeah, and they apparently had like some business dealings together. Dr. Dixon was starting like an allergy testing company, allegedly with Dave. So Dave comes to police, confesses everything, says this guy, like my friend, I wanted to help him out. You know, he was, at first it started off that they were just gonna like follow Dr. Soliere around, try to catch him with another woman and send it to Shatina to get them to break
him
up.
Yeah.
And then it kind of, as it escalated to more, you know, sinister plots of murder. And he paid him to do this with 3 silver bars
Oh.
and the Cuban cigars that he came to get that night that Ashley said that he had come over.
So that's the going rate of a hitman in Lubbock, Texas in 2012.
Yeah, it was
3 silver bars and cigars.
yeah, the silver bars, they had found that he pawned them in the pawn shop. He got 1 like a month before the murder and then 2 when the deed was done.
How much are those bars worth?
It was like about $8,000.
A bar?
No, total.
Huh.
What?
Yeah.
I know.
You have to pay me more than what a bitch with 300,000 followers is making on one video in order for me to kill someone.
All right.
I'm not gonna kill someone for an influencer's rate. Like that's
I-
crazy. Maybe Alex Earl's rate, but not like
It's-
my rate.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
joking aside, I mean, somebody's dead, and that's how cheap life is to some people.
A perfectly innocent person was dead.
A nice
A
pathologist,
nice
whose
pathologist.
poor wife left him for some
Yeah.
schmuck who killed her.
And what's crazy too is like, Shatina's just gonna go date someone else.
I know.
You didn't get rid of the problem. You got rid of the symptom.
Sure. And it's definitely not going to date Dr. Dixon now that he's, I assume, going to get caught.
I love how like he knowingly killed her man, and he's telling the police, "Yeah, I would take her back." Would she take you back?
True. Very.
Wait, how old was he at this
Crazy.
point, Dr. Dixon?
He's also late 40s, maybe for 50. Like,
Wow.
somewhere between 48 and 50.
Wow.
So in the confession, he
Rudy Valencia.
so during the confession, he tells them all this information that he got paid, and he tells them where the gun is. The gun is buried. He said he threw it in some pond. He takes them. They find the gun. Gun is registered to Dr. Dixon's brother, Monty
Ooh.
Dixon. So he said he gave him the gun, everything.
What about the stabbing? Why did he stab him?
I think he just wanted to make sure he was dead.
Oh,
He just because he was still running after getting shot. So.
right.
This happened He was murdered July 10th, found July 11th. They arrested the murderers by July 16th. In time for on the day of his funeral, they
He was already in jail.
Yeah, they arrested Dr. Dixon. So his family had Dr. Soliere's family had some peace
Yeah.
with at least that being solved.
One recurring theme I'm noticing in the stories is that plastic surgeons are terrible murderers. Terrible.
Yeah.
It's like they've never watched a single episode of Law and Order. Like that.
Yeah.
It might be because their egos are so big, they think that they could just get away with it.
Could
Like,
be.
They could,
That
Yeah.
could be.
Listen to this that I forgot to tell you. When he got arrested, the day that the police came to him,
Yeah.
he had started texting Dave right away, saying like the police just came. Ashley told them you were here last night. Like lay low. They're probably gonna collect this. Da da da.
Probably.
And then when they
The
come,
gun is registered to his brother.
and then he proceeds to delete all his text messages. And when the cops come to arrest him, he jumps in the pool so that his phone would get destroyed. So he thought the messages were gonna get destroyed. But
I mean, they're saved. They're saved somewhere in the cloud.
No,
I'm
not even the
sure.
cloud. He connected it to his laptop. They were on his laptop.
So like his iMessages.
Yes.
You know, I know a couple of guys that got busted because their iMessages went to their laptop.
Yes.
Like they're sending
Yes.
messages to,
Yes. So most of his
people they shouldn't be sending messages to.
they were able to recover most of his messages, which I'll read you what they were.
Please do.
and also, well, I mean, in his defense, that's probably the first year iCloud existed. Like, he probably didn't realize. Because if you imagine, like, the
It's
first
possible.
iPhone just
It's
came
2012. No, iPhones have been around since 2008 or 9.
out. Yeah,
or
but I don't
something.
think you could link them to your computer like that.
I'm
before.
I like the I know what you mean. The iShare.
I think before
thing.
you had to physically plug it in.
So this is the day before the murder. Shepard texts Dixon, perfect day to travel to Hub City, which I guess is Lubbock, whatever. And then Dixon writes back, need it done ASAP. And he says, me too. I've got gas and ready to head south tomorrow. Got a good feeling about tomorrow. Yay! Hope he shows. Hope so. And then this is the day before the murder. And then the day of the murder, Dixon says to Shepard, put it on him. And then he says, on target. Still no show. Only been an hour, but damn. And then Dixon says, patience. Easier said than done. Persevere we shall. At least I'm not sweating my ass off. Vitamins I bought must be helping as well. And Dixon says, good. Any intel from anywhere? No. Almost 2 hours. Hold fast. Patience. How long do you think it's safe to park on the street unattended? I think it's okay. And
He's
he
worrying
says
about like parking ticket.
We'll keep you posted. I guess a big notice. So those were the text messages they talk about and that they show in
One of these people like went through med school and actually took really hard tests.
Okay, so
Clearly, like coaxing his friend. Like
Yes.
he's like
yeah, we'll get into more detail.
Steadfast.
manipulating his friend a little bit.
A little bit.
Yeah.
We go to trial.
Look at these shiny silver bars. Don't you want these?
That's crazy.
Dixon is incarcerated and he's put on his bail is set for $10 million.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
And Shepard pleads not guilty and he's confesses so that they take the death penalty off the table because this is a capital crime.
And it's Texas. Murder for hire.
Murder for hire is a capital crime.
As it should be.
Yeah. So 2 years later, they go to court. Prosecution calls their star witness, Dave Shepard. Dave Shepard recants everything. He said, I did it on my own. I just thought it would be helpful to him for my friend. I wanted to help him out. He had nothing to do with it.
What about the text messages?
What
So
is he giving him that's worth the death penalty?
no, he wasn't gonna get. That was off the table because he already had his plea. He was already charged, convicted, so he was able. The death penalty wasn't back on the table.
Right.
So he recants, and the hung jury mistrial.
What? What? Text messages?
Well, the star witness, the prosecution did their whole case around this witness, and he recanted.
Yeah, but wouldn't the
how do you
testimony-
explain the fact that the gun was the brother's gun and they're texting back and forth?
Well, he said he had explanations for everything. He said that he stole the gun when he was at the house. He gave him the silver bars as an investment for their new business, and he did it in silver bars because he was just getting divorced and that he couldn't pay. Everything else was joint property. You know, he had explanations.
Well,
What
they
about the
couldn't-
patient's texts?
It didn't fly with the jurors.
Yeah, but what about the
Wow.
fact that he confessed and was convicted because he confessed? Like that alone.
Well, he took it back. He didn't deny doing the murder. He said
just,
he did it.
He just said
he
it
just
had
said
nothing to do with the doctor.
yeah, he just said he made that part up.
Wow, that's a solid friend.
You
Not
know.
gonna lie.
But what? That's
I don't have friends like that. You got a friend like that?
What did he want? Like Cheetos in jail? Like what can this guy fucking offer him?
No, he's a friend.
Shepard's daughters say that he was just very enamored with Dr. Dixon. It was like they had like this bromance that he was.
That's what it sounds
you know
like.
that
yeah.
he was just like very
So it was a love
What-
square.
just wanted to please him and all of that.
Sounds like Dr. Dixon manipulated him.
I
His
think
friend,
so.
a little bit.
So he,
Is he like a simpleton?
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like it a little
Sounds
bit.
like it, right? Yeah.
So the prosecution has to do a new trial because when you hang a hang jury doesn't mean somebody gets off. It just means they have to try it again. So unless you get an innocent verdict.
Right.
So there's no.
But sometimes they don't want to go through the hassle.
Right. So the prosecutor says that I think I mentioned this before. Prosecution hates retrials because it's really hard to do, and the jury already couldn't decide once what's going to make a difference in a second trial. Especially now they don't even have this star witness anymore. They can't count on him. They said it's like putting back on a wet bathing suit. That's how they describe it. You know,
It's like
really,
putting the schnitzel back in the microwave.
yes
Doesn't taste the same.
exactly.
Do they use the same jury?
No, it's a new jury.
It's a new jury.
So?
Yeah, it's a new
You
jury.
haven't seen it yet.
But I think this was
It's
actually
been on 2020. I
Fresh
mean,
eyes.
maybe there's less. It's harder to get an impartial jury now.
This was actually a very public trial because it was just a shocking case of a surgeon killing another doctor over a love triangle. It
Where's
wasn't
weird.
Shatina and all this shit?
Shatina.
She got off scot free.
Miss Girl.
They set a new trial date, and they don't reduce his bail though, so he's still in jail.
Yeah.
In 2015, they do a new trial,
Okay.
and this time they don't call Shepard. They stick with Reynolds, the guy who
we confessed to.
they confessed to.
Perfect.
So they stick with him, and then even more so,
What?
Shepard's own daughters like testify against him and say, "I think he was definitely lying. He killed. I think that this happened. You know, they basically just didn't take their father's side. They're like, he was
They said he was hired by
Yeah.
the doctor to kill this guy
Yeah.
for this reason.
yes, and they
Right.
say they remember the weekend he got the silver bar. Like he took them out for a nice dinner. Like he had all this money out of nowhere.
And
they
it wasn't
asked-
an investment. It was just for him to spend.
Yeah, because they asked him, where'd you get this money? He said, I did a job for somebody. Don't ask what. That's what he told his daughters. So his daughters, like, totally, like, they testify for the prosecution.
Right?
And then Dixon himself testifies, which is always a risky move for defendants to testify.
Not
But his
Dixon.
ego
Yeah, Dixon testifies.
yeah.
in his own defense.
In his
he
own defense,
testified in
right.
his own defense, which is a dumb move.
Yes, it's usually a dumb move. And it was a dumb move because the jury didn't like him.
No.
They did some, they interviewed the jury after, and they were all like, he's so egotistical, he's da-da-da. Like, they just didn't like his testimony. And he wasn't very believable because he, like, left stuff out to the police officers. They have all these text messages where they're talking about like I said, the plan and da-da-da. Even though I told you, he tries to explain it that the plan was just to take pictures of of him with other women, or to get other women to pretend that they were dating him or to proposition themselves to him, and then they could catch him.
And
But
those were all in the text messages.
yeah, but they didn't buy it. They said, no, we don't believe him, and he's convicted, guilty.
I mean, it's hard enough for a plastic surgeon to seem likable, let alone a murdering plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
He must have come off as very not likable.
Yeah, he's very. They said he was unlikable, egotistical. They didn't believe him. He wasn't credible. Like he screwed himself with his testimony, so they didn't like him. So he's convicted.
Yeah.
The story does not end.
What?
So he goes to appeal his
Conviction,
his
yeah.
conviction,
Mhm.
which people do. That's normal.
Yeah.
And the appellate court, two of the things that he said were, so when they were showing the text messages in trial,
Mhm.
they also used cell tower information to locate him in Lubbock, Texas, at the same time as Shepard, when Shepard was there, like doing his reconnaissance.
Right.
So one of the dates, and then after that was in 2015 trial. In 2017, the Supreme Court came out with a decision that you can't use cell tower information without a warrant.
Oh.
So they had just got a court order, but not a warrant. So the Supreme Court said that in 2017 that you're not allowed to do that without a warrant. The appellate court ruled that they couldn't tell if this error was why he was convicted, if it was beyond a reasonable doubt, like they call it harmless error, like if
Right.
it, or if it was or wasn't, they couldn't tell. So they overturned his conviction,
What?
and it's sent back to the lower court for a third trial.
Right.
Prosecution says fuck that, and they go straight to appeal the appellate court's decision to the highest court in Texas, the Criminal Court of Appeals.
You can appeal an appeal
Yeah.
from the Supreme Court.
Yeah, no,
No.
Supreme Court is different.
Different.
So basically, the way it works is you have a trial court,
Yes.
then there's an intermediate appellate court,
Okay.
and then there's the highest court in the state.
Okay. And that's
Every
where they
state-
appeal to.
Yes.
Got
So
it.
they appeal to the Criminal Court of Appeals of Texas, this appellate court's decision. The Criminal Court of Appeals and they don't have to accept appeal. It's discretionary.
Right.
When you get to the
Like the
highest courts,
Supreme Court.
Like the Supreme Court,
Yeah.
they accept the
case?
review,
Mhm.
and the Criminal Court of Appeals overturns everything the appellate court, the lower appellate court said. They said that
So they maintain his conviction.
they maintained his conviction. They said that the cell tower information was harmless error beyond a reasonable doubt. They said the public trial thing was bullshit. Like, that was just they reasonably accommodated having a public trial. It just
Right.
was,
As public as he wanted it to be.
exactly.
Oh, good for the prosecution.
So they overturned the lower court's ruling, and they sent it back to the lower court because remember he had like 50 reasons for
Right.
appeal, and they only ruled on the two that
Right.
got it overturned.
Was he sentenced yet?
Yeah, we sentenced to life without parole.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good.
It's capital case they didn't seek the death penalty. So capital
Right.
case without the death penalty is life without parole.
Nice. Good.
On 2 counts. They did it on murder for hire and murder for
Murder, She Wrote?
No, murder during a burglary. Because the guy,
But he didn't burgle.
well, he broke and
He broke
entered.
in.
He committed a felony breaking into the house.
Okay.
So they overturned it, sent it back to the intermediate appellate court to rule on all the other
The other 48.
yeah, the other
complaints,
48
yeah.
things, and the appellate court says all the other 48 things are bullshit. Conviction stands. He's convicted. Then they this is in 2020. This just came out January 2022.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They appeal in August 2022 to the Criminal Court of Appeals in Texas again for this ruling.
Yeah.
They don't accept the case.
Done. So he's done.
Then in
No.
November 2022, he files the writ to the Supreme Court to hear his case.
Of the United States
the
of
United
America.
States of America. He appeals. Supreme Court does not accept his case.
Yeah, it's a bullshit case. Why the fuck would they waste their time on that?
So they do not accept his case, and that was in March 2023.
So this-
So he is out of appeals, and he is stuck in prison
he's
for life.
SOL.
Yeah.
Shit out of luck.
Could
Shit out of
he-
luck.
Could he possibly, going on with, connecting it with last week's episode, could he possibly perform plastic surgery for free on other prisoners?
I don't know. I guess that's up to the warden.
I think that would be a good idea.
That would actually
If the
be
warden's
great.
listening to this podcast, I think he should see if he can arrange something.
You know, like that. Actually, that's great. Like,
was
they
he a
should
good
take-
plastic surgeon? Do we know?
According to reports, he was. I tried to look up on Yelp, but they don't have any reviews posted.
They
His
should
website's
take,
down, you're
yeah,
saying?
his website's down.
They should take all the plastic surgeons that have been imprisoned
Yes.
and make them do that. Like that can be one of their like.
Not
Not that they lower their
that's-
sentence for any.
No,
shit,
no, no,
but that
no,
they
no.
make
But
money.
I see like a sitcom. You see it, Megan? You see the sitcom there? All the plastic surgeons in prison, they make them, instead of like working in the shop, they make them do plastic surgery.
Yeah, I think that's great.
You see the vision?
I see the vision.
It's like night court, but for plastic surgeons that are stuck in jail.
No, I think that they should try it as a real like prison reform effort. Because
I agree.
probably part of the reason why
reality.
they can't do that now is because it's too expensive to send.
Right. But if
plastic
you have the
surgeons to-
plastic
but if they're
surgeons
already-
anyway,
If they're already in the
who
prison,
cares if they're murderers? Would you trust a
they
plastic
can do
surgeon
local.
who's been convicted of murder to operate on you,
They
though?
can do local.
But still, what do you want? Like
But they're-
eyes on him?
But
No,
there's
I
a
wouldn't care.
there are other. Don't they become friends in prison? I mean, there are other murderers.
No, but he would do it on like people like drug charges, like stuff like that. Like
No, but
The people who could get out.
Yeah.
I'm just feeling about. I'm wondering if they're gonna let someone in for life hold a knife. I'm just saying. There's a lot of
But
You
a lot
know,
of them are not
it
like
could go
they're not
a
like
lot of different
serial
ways.
killers.
not yet, but maybe they've, they got nothing to live for. I'm not saying it's a terrible idea, but it would require further thought.
It's like saying don't let the person who's really good at cooking be the chef because he might poison the food. Like no, why?
But
are
if he did poison the food in the past, or like killed somebody with the kitchen knife,
no, it's separate.
separate. You can separate that out.
Yeah, I'm sure they could do if you tell them, okay, go make a fucking table for 3 cents an hour, or we'll pay you $1 an hour.
Right.
Oh, do the dollar. Like,
Okay. All right. Fine. I hear you.
whatever.
Well, if there's a prison warden in Texas that can, what's the word? Round up all these plastic surgeons,
I hope there aren't that many.
herd them into one. Apparently, we have this whole podcast.
Yes.
Clearly, there are plenty,
Yes, unfortunately.
and there's going to be one more in Colorado now. We could probably have a whole network,
I'm sure there's like a trillion in
a prison
Florida.
squad.
a prison squad.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
Well, I thought it was a great episode, Rosie. You did a great job. Thank you.
Do you guys have any questions,
No,
comments,
it was
corrections?
fantastic.
I'm glad that he ran out of his appeals. That's like
Yeah,
rare.
it is.
It's also rare that like your appeals kind of happen that fast.
I was getting nervous during my research because I was like, wow, he has because I just read the Supreme Court motions and I didn't know what the ruling was, and then I saw it was just came down in March that they
But
denied,
later,
they
if the-
denied the writ.
You're
If
like, he's going to
later-
walk.
No, but later if they have like another Supreme Court ruling that like interfere with his case, could he later appeal that?
I think he could.
So he's not completely out.
Because if there's a new to appeal to the Supreme Court, you have to have a federal issue. It can't just be. It has to be like a constitutional issue.
Right.
So
Which the public trial thing might have been.
yeah, it was.
Yeah, that's a
he
ten-
did it on his Sixth Amendment trial by jury, right to confrontation. Because he also had a big complaint that in the second trial they just used Shepard's test, like his confession, but they didn't put him on the stand.
Right.
So that technically is hearsay and violates his right of confrontation.
Right.
But the court said it was fine.
Well, I mean, there was a lot of other evidence.
Yeah, I think also I don't think courts don't like to get overturned. So when when the middle court got overturned by the higher court, I don't think they were gonna
risk a second.
they were gonna risk it again
yeah.
to get overturned. So
Yeah,
he
I was gonna
kinda
say,
screwed.
isn't that rare that like a higher court will even like overturn it?
Yeah, they don't
Because it just makes it's like bad. It's like bad blood.
yeah,
makes
they
it
don't
look-
like to do it unless it's like, I guess it was such a new Supreme Court ruling, they didn't know how to interpret it, so they just erred on the side of caution.
Right. And they figure if they're wrong, it'll get appealed higher. And
Right,
they'll
exactly.
overturn them.
So because it literally happened during the appeal, so
Right.
it was.
Well, that was
so-
fantastic, Rosie.
Yeah, I can't imagine how he felt getting out of jail. He must have been so happy, and then to have to go back in.
How long was he out of
Do you
jail
think
then?
you think he could dance with?
I think a year.
You think he could dance with Shantina with the ankle bracelet? Did he get a refund on the dancing classes? No.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
I kind of almost feel bad for the guy he hired.
He seemed like I said, like a little bit of a simpleton. You know,
Yeah.
like he was kind of manipulated
He was.
both ways, to kill and then to recant.
He definitely was. It definitely seemed like that. So that was the love triangle in Texas.
What are we gonna call this one? Shantina shits on the shit. No,
I thought, I don't know.
Dancing with Shantina.
I think one of
The
the
Doctor
Shatina-
Death dances to
The
I-
Shatina Tango.
the Shatina tango.
I think one of the Dateline episodes about this is called something like that, like The Last Dance or
The
something.
Last-
And
Last
then, yeah, they
Dance.
come up with the worst titles.
I know, but they're
Can
like,
you imagine you're like brutally murdered and these motherfuckers at 2020
I
release an
know.
episode called The Last
and it's
Dance?
probably somebody like literally like your age
I would be in the
coming
room
up
like,
with it.
Meanwhile, like Shatina, poor chick. Like,
Yeah.
I know.
I mean, she wasn't great at the start of the story, but
Yeah.
like she did suffer a little bit, and we're like shitty.
She did. Why did she break up a marriage or anything? No, she didn't. No.
She
She
did.
did.
Oh, she did. Which one was that?
Dixon's marriage.
Oh, she did. You're right.
She did.
Yeah, that's not nice.
The saddest is the doctor, the pathologist, the poor nice pathologist.
I know.
Yeah.
His first wife left him, got murdered, and then he gets involved with this lady and gets murdered by her ex-boyfriend.
Bad luck.
Bad luck. Well, rest in peace, Dr. Soliere.
Yeah.